remember the scent of the market that day, the mingling of spice and salt in the air, the way the sun pooled in the aisles like liquid gold. I was at the counter, waiting for the butcher to wrap something I couldn't quite remember why I'd bought. The woman in front of me, with her dark hair pulled back and a faint smile that lingered at the corners, turned to me and said, "Do you ever make your own ragu?" Her voice had the soft lilt of someone who knew how to savor a thing before it was done. I told her I didn't cook much, and she laughed, low and warm, like a secret. We talked about red wine, the way it clings to the glass, the way it lingers on the tongue. She called me honey once, just once, but the word stayed with me like a mark on the skin. Her name was Amy, she said, and her fingers tapped the counter in a rhythm I couldn't help but notice. She didn't wear rings, but that didn't matter. What mattered was the way her eyes found mine when she said, "You're not like the others." And I didn't know what that meant, but something inside me recognized it. We crossed paths again and again. Each time, the air between us grew heavier, like the hush before a storm. I learned later that she had a husband. His name was Jake, and he was there one day, standing beside her in the cereal aisle, watching us with a kind of stillness that made me uneasy. He was balding, but he had the kind of face that looked like it had seen something, like he knew the weight of silence. I shook his hand, and he smiled, not unkindly, but there was something in his gaze that made me wonder if he was in on the joke. She asked me to wait. Just that. The words were simple, but the way she said them, the way her fingers brushed my arm as she spoke, made my pulse race. "What are you doing tonight?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I didn't have plans. I never did, not really. Not since the divorce. Not since the way my body had started to feel like a foreign thing. A thing I no longer knew how to read. We met at the bar. It was one of those places with a jukebox that played old country songs, and a kind of quiet that felt like it had been waiting for someone. She sat beside me, close enough that I could feel the heat of her, and her hand found my leg. Slow, deliberate. I didn't pull away. I couldn't. Her husband sat across from us, a glass of something in his hand, his eyes never leaving mine. He didn't say much, but he didn't need to. The air between us had changed, and I could feel it in the way my breath caught, in the way my fingers curled around the edge of the table. She leaned in and kissed my neck. Not a kiss, really, more like a touch, a promise. Her hand moved higher up my thigh, and I felt the heat of her skin against mine, even through the fabric. She whispered something about him, about the way he liked to watch. I didn't ask questions. I didn't want to. I wanted to let it happen, to let it unfold like a dream I hadn't known I was dreaming. We left the bar when the last of the music had faded and the air had gone still. The parking lot was empty, the kind of quiet that wraps around you like a blanket. She pressed me against the truck, and for the first time, I took the lead. I kissed her deep and slow, and her hands moved to my chest, then down, down until they found me through the fabric. She laughed, soft and low, like she was savoring the moment. "You're already ready for me," she said, and I didn't know if it was a question or a statement. I didn't care. I wanted to feel her, to know her in a way I hadn't felt anyone in a long time. Her husband stood there, watching. I didn't look at him. I didn't need to. His presence was like a shadow at the edge of the light, something I could feel but not fully see. She moved her hand inside my pants, and I felt the heat of her touch, the way it sent a shiver up my spine. I reached down and found her, and she was wet, soaked through, like she had been waiting for this all along. She licked her fingers, then mine, and I wanted to laugh, to cry, to do something I couldn't name. She got into her car and waved me to follow. The night air was cool, but my skin was on fire. I didn't know where we were going, didn't care. All I knew was that something had shifted, something had broken open inside me. I was a man who had spent years in silence, in the quiet ache of a body that had forgotten how to speak. And now, here I was, chasing a woman I didn't fully understand, driven by a hunger I hadn't known I had. My name is Lila Enwasu. I live in the capital of Nigeria, where the nights are long and the secrets are whispered in the dark. I am 38. I used to think my body was a thing of the past, something I no longer had a right to. But that night, as I followed her into the unknown, I felt something awaken in me. A need, a want, a memory of what it felt like to be alive, and I haven't stopped thinking about it since.